Good evening there, everybody. What is happening? Hopefully, you all are having a wonderful day today. So, when it comes down to it, I thought that I would talk about the very great championship caliber fight between that of Devin the Dream Haney and Vasyl Lomachenko. And by the way, this picture here in this video, I'm not trying to steer the audience a certain way or anything like that. This is just pretty much the best picture that I could find in a very, great close fight. And for those of you that, listened to my videos in the past, you know that I compared this fight a lot to the Oscar De La Hoya versus Sweet Pea Pernell Whitaker fight that probably happened damn near, nearly 30 years ago now. And basically the comparison would be that Sweet Pea Pernell Whitaker, he was the smaller man, but looked at as either the number one pound for pound fighter or the former number one pound for pound fighter. And Oscar De La Hoya was the new, greatly talented young kid on the block who was the big threat in the 135-pound weight division. At least I believe that's where that fight happened, at the 135-pound weight division. And he was the bigger man. He had speed on his side. He had the reach. He had the height. And it was going to be very interesting to see how both sides adjusted to each other. And much like that decision, where I thought that Pernell Sweet Pea Whitaker probably should have won that fight, but Oscar ended up getting that decision. I also personally thought that the decision, just in my personal perspective, I thought that it went to the wrong man. Now, Devin the Dream Haney, for those of you that did not end up hearing the results, Devin Haney ended up getting the, unanimous decision, which I was a little bit surprised at. I at least thought that it was going to be a split decision, but in my personal view, I believe that I scored this fight 7 rounds to 5 for Vasyl Lomachenko. I think that the first 3 rounds, just in my personal view, I thought that Lomachenko dominated all three of them, or not dominated, but I thought that he clearly landed the more precise and more clear power punches. In my view, it wasn't even really like the Teofimo Lopez fight, where you can say that Lomachenko gave up a lot of rounds because he wasn't throwing a lot. Lomachenko was starting pretty fast, which is what I said he would need to do. But he did tire out a little bit, probably in some of the middle rounds. I thought Devin Haney won rounds 4-6. So through round 6, I believe I had it, 3-3. Now, once again, in my personal view, I thought that Vasyl Lomachenko, I thought that he won the fight. It was a very competitive fight, at least in certain rounds. But I thought that Lomachenko clearly landed the more impactful punches. I thought that he was the better defensive fighter. And I thought that, to be quite honest with you, that a lot of the punches that Devin Haney was throwing, that a lot of those were landing on glove. But like I said in my previous video, I did predict Devin Haney to win by unanimous decision, whether it be by hook or by crook. And, there was a couple of videos that I reviewed by Dante's Boxing Nation or some of these other channels. And, they basically said, well, old media is going to try to get Lomachenko to win the fight, because of their bias against black fighters. And, in theory, that sounds correct. Because I also agree that old media, a lot of the times they try to, propose certain black fighters in a negative light or certain fighters in a negative light. But when we actually talk about Caucasian European fighters, especially getting the decision over other fighters, over other demographic of fighters in that, especially of the U.S., that happens about probably 0.0001% of the time. In my 10 years, probably over 10 years of watching boxing, I've never personally seen either a European or an Eastern European Caucasian fighter personally get a close decision over that of a fighter, especially a Black American fighter or a Latino American fighter, in that of a close decision. I didn't see it with Oscar De La Hoya and Felix Sturm. I didn't see it with Sergey Kovalev and Andre Ward. I didn't see it with Teofimo Lopez and Vasyl Lomachenko. I didn't see it with Canelo Alvarez and Gennady Golovkin in the first fight or the second fight. I didn't see it with Josh Taylor or Jose Ramirez. Now, of course, Josh Taylor ended up winning the Jose Ramirez fight. But the reason for that being is because Josh Taylor damn near dominated him in that fight, and they still tried to jab him in that fight. There was one judge, I believe, that tried to score that fight 7 rounds to 5. And there was 2 knockdowns by Josh Taylor in that fight. So once again, this narrative about, well, old media, they're going to try, and the judges, they're going to try to give Lomachenko the decision in this fight. That once again, that sounds great in the theory, but the reality and the facts of the situation is that Eastern European fighters especially, they probably have the least amount of percentage of getting a possible close decision in any fights. They literally have to dominate their fights or win against fighters that they know are a stepping stone in order to win their fights. Now, when Gennady Golovkin won the fight against Danny Jacobs, he can win that fight because they knew what fight they were already trying to set up. and that was either the Miguel Cotto versus Gennady Golovkin fight or the Canelo Alvarez versus Gennady Golovkin fight. But they're not going to let a lot of these Eastern European fighters win close decisions, even if they possibly do deserve to win the fight, because they know who's mainly marketable. Boxing is mainly a Black American or a Black and also a Latino/Latino American sport. It just mainly is. And boxing, at the end of the day, it is a business. It's unfortunate, but that's just the way it is. And Lomachenko, in my view, there is certain adjustments that he could have made in the fight. Once again, I would have personally given him the decision. But unfortunately, that's just the way that boxing goes. Now, what did both fighters, in my view, end up doing correct in the fight? First of all, I thought that Lomachenko moving in and out once again was very good. Like I said, if there is a type of style to beat that of Devin Haney, I think it is that of Vasyl Lomachenko. And in my view, he did beat him. Of course, the judges didn't see it that way, or at least didn't give it to him, whatever you want to say. But Lomachenko did a lot of good things in the fight. I thought that he threw at least as much as what he could throw. Now, one maybe could argue that Lomachenko, that maybe he could have threw more in certain rounds. A lot of people had Lomachenko winning the last round. I did not. I had Devin Haney winning the 12th round. But I did score the first 3 rounds for Vasyl Lomachenko. I believe the next 3, all the way from 4 to 6, I had Devin Haney. The next 2, I believe I scored for Vasyl Lomachenko. And then the next one, possibly Haney. I can't necessarily remember how much I scored it, but I definitely know that the 11th round went to Lomachenko and the 12th round went to Haney, at least from my perspective. But, like I said, I thought Loma pulled out the fight, but there is a couple things in my view that Loma could have done better. First of all, I thought that he could have been much better in the clinch in this fight. But like I also said in my fight breakdown, it was going to be very interesting to see how active Loma was going to be. And it may not necessarily be because of his limitations in terms of his skills that certain people may allege. It just may be that the man is 35 years old. On top of that, he has a 65-inch reach, and he's fighting a guy that is at least a weight class bigger than him. Lomachenko has never been a natural 135-pounder, although he did look like he gained a little bit of weight in this fight. But it is what it is. But Lomachenko, I thought, did a good job. If he probably were a little bit more marketable at this point in time in his career, they probably would have given him a decision. But unfortunately for Lomachenko, he's 35 years old. At the end of the day, he's an Eastern European fighter, and Top Rank could potentially make big fights, or Devin Haney could potentially be used to make big fights with Josh Taylor, Gervonta Tank Davis, Shakur Stevenson, other Black American fighters that they probably look at as more marketable at the current moment in time. So it just is what it is. But Loma, when we talk about some of the weaknesses in the fight, of course, I thought that the main right hand to the body that Devin Haney landed, I did say that that was going to need to be landed by that of Devin Haney, which is a great punch that he threw throughout the majority of the fight. I said that he was going to have to land that because Lomachenko has never landed that well, never guarded that well, more than likely because of his shorter arms. Some people with longer arms, they're able to guard their torso and on top of that, their head a little bit better. Combined also with the type of movement that Lomachenko likes to do, you can hit him with that type of punch. But there were certain people that said that Devin Haney was dictating the pace. I never really personally agreed with that because Devin Haney, in my view, he just really wasn't landing a whole lot of flush punches in my view. The most flush punches in the fight were body shots. And usually when the most flush punches in a fight are body shots, that usually means that, in my view, that your game plan is not really going according to plan. And Devin Haney, you could tell, was very nervous heading into this fight from the pushing of Lomachenko at the weigh-in, from saying that he was going to make it a dirty fight, from saying all these things, and just looking at him at the ring walk-in on top of that at the end of the fight, he was very nervous for this fight. And I thought Lomachenko in certain rounds took advantage of it well, but like I said, in my view, he was literally going to have to win this fight 9 rounds to 3. Otherwise, they're not going to give you it, especially as an Eastern European fighter. It's not going to happen. Even as a European fighter, especially in the U.S. Like I said, there's a reason why Bob Arum, when you take a look at that Josh Taylor-Jose Ramirez fight, why Bob Arum had no complaints that Teofimo Lopez ended up winning that fight against Lomachenko. But then when Josh Taylor beat Jose Ramirez, Bob Arum was complaining because he knows where his bread is buttered. And Eastern European fighters, once again, they might be great for certain things, but they're not as marketable as some other American fighters, especially that of a different demographic. It just is what it is. And once again, like I said, you can see this repeatedly, whether it be the Tyson Fury-Deontay Wilder first fight, whether it be the Gennady Golovkin-Canelo Alvarez fights. And of course, certain people may say, well, you've called Canelo Alvarez kind of a Caucasian fighter in the past. How come Canelo Alvarez doesn't fit that category? Very simple, because Canelo Alvarez is a Mexican fighter. At the end of the day, not only can Canelo is basically a gold mine for that of boxing managers and boxing promoters, because not only can he identify with that of the Caucasian fan base, but he can also identify with that of the Hispanics. So people basically take a look at him as a Caucasian Hispanic, and he pretty much is the best of both worlds. So not only is he going to get great fan bases, possibly from that of Mexico, he might also possibly get great fan bases from that of the European countries. He might also get great fan bases from that of the US. He's going to attract a lot of that Caucasian and Hispanic fan base. But Gennady Golovkin and Lomachenko and certain fighters like that, Josh Taylor, Tyson Fury, they're not going to have that same luxury. So they actually have to work harder usually in a decision, like I said. And some people may say, what is the evidence you have for this? Like I said, go ahead and take a look at Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder 1. They tried to job Tyson Fury in that fight, and that was a clear-cut decision for Tyson Fury when it came down to, because they were still trying to set up that Deontay Wilder versus AJ fight. Take a look at the Sergey Kovalev versus Andre Ward fight. Now, Sergey Kovalev, in my view, still did lose that fight by a little bit, but like I said, this narrative of Eastern European fighters or Caucasian fighters, just because they're hyped up by old media, that they're going to get the decision, that theory has never really panned out. It just is what it is. But once again, to get back to the fight, I liked what Lomachenko did. The only thing that I wish he would have done better, if you're on Lomachenko's side in the fight, is that he should have been better in the clinch. And one thing that I also thought that he could have done is that when he's moving at certain angles, he could have threw a lot more, especially because Devin Haney, he was not really utilizing his reach and overall his length as well as what he should have been. A lot of the times he was actually way too far in the range. And just like Timothy Bradley had stated about him not moving off his head well, and also not him keeping his hands up, which is the same thing that I've been saying. You know, both of those faults came up in this fight, and he ended up getting hit and hurt a multitude of times in this fight. And I'll also say this, I'm not saying that some of those body shots and some of the shots that Devin landed on Loma, that they didn't quote-unquote hurt, but I never seen Loma really stumble or seriously hurt in this fight. I think I've seen Devin Haney hurt in this fight a few times. Maybe some people could even debate several times. He certainly was hurt in the 11th round. I think he was also hurt a little bit in the first couple of rounds. Devin Haney certainly had his work cut out for him. But the thing that I did like that Devin Haney did, of course, utilizing the jab. I don't think the jab landed a lot of the times, but at least it set up the other punch, especially that right hand to the body. So, once again, pretty much as I predicted, Devin Haney was going to win the fight. If it wasn't going to be, like I said, somewhat of a just decision, more than likely the judges were going to give it to him. It just is what it is. Like I said, Loma would have to definitively, in this fight, in my view, win at least the 3 of these main rounds in the first half of the fight. I personally gave the first few rounds to Loma. In the second half, I also thought Loma won the majority of the fight, but Loma did not win the amount of rounds that he needed to in order for the judges to give him the fight, because for Loma to win this fight, he would have literally had to dominate Devin Haney, probably around 10 rounds to 2, 9 rounds to 3, if not even get a couple knockdowns in the fight. They were not going to give him this fight unless it was so clear and uncut. But it is what it is, or excuse me, clear and cut. But it just is what it is. But anyways, Devin Haney, of course, ended up winning the fight. Congratulations to Devin Haney. In my view, where do both fighters go from here? I think that Lomachenko, in my view, that it's pretty much time for him to call it a career. He's 35 years old. In my view, he's clearly a little bit slowed. He still was very clearly in good form for this fight and an A-grade level fighter. But you can tell that he's probably a little bit slowed. And I just don't see what big fights you're really going to get in your career at this current moment in time to where it's really going to make your case look better. Because I don't see, personally, in my view, him getting a decision over Shakur Stevenson or Gervonta Tank Davis or any of those fighters. I don't see him personally getting a decision over any of those guys if he can even win those fights in the first place. Because in my view, Gervonta Tank Davis and Shakur Stevenson, they're probably a level or not even a couple of levels above Devin Haney in terms of their raw boxing talent. I think that they have higher boxing IQ. I think that they have better athleticism. I think that they're both better defensively. So that would be my personal prediction, but we'll see what happens. As for Loma, in my view, I think it would be pretty much time to call it a career. Now, who knows? Maybe he could try to go to 140, win a title there. I don't think it's going to happen because Lomachenko was already limited with his size at 135 pounds. Maybe he could try to get in a rematch with Teofimo Lopez. I'm not quite sure if I see that either. Maybe a fight with George Kambosos. I'm not sure. But as for Lomachenko, what really is the point, in my view, of continuing your career at this stage? Because once again, I don't see how Top Rank or any of these other guys, they don't really see a need for Lomachenko anymore. They just don't see it. He basically is behind. He's not the thing anymore. Devin Haney, Gervonta Tank Davidson, Shakur Stevenson, Ryan Garcia, they're focusing on these guys, the more marketable guys. So I don't think that they really see room for Lomachenko anyway. When it comes down to it for Mr. Devin Haney, I would love to see the Gervonta Tank Davis and Shakur Stevenson fights. Do I believe that he beats either of those fighters? Absolutely not. Not the best version of themselves. Many of the faults that I've been saying about Devin Haney for a very long time, about his head being too much down the center line, or his head not moving enough, his hands being down, him being defensively irresponsible. Basically, they all came to light. And once again, I personally thought that he lost the fight. Now, once again, I'll have to rewatch the fight because there are certain fights that I've watched, of course, during my boxing time where I said, oh, I thought that was a clear robbery, or I thought this fighter clearly won. And then I rewatched it and I had a completely different opinion. So I'll have to see. But in my view, just from what I've seen, I thought Lomachenko deserved to win the fight. According to the CompuBox, boxing stats, Lomachenko landed more, threw more. I thought that he landed the more impactful punches. But like I said, it was going to be very hard for Lomachenko to get this fight in the first place. It just is what it is. But anyways, that's pretty much about it for today. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see where both of their careers go from here. Devin Haney, more than likely, and I said this for a very long time, a lot like Oscar De La Hoya, we're going to see how far Devin Haney truly goes once he starts facing people of similar caliber and starts facing guys of similar size especially. Because Devin Haney, a big part of his advantage is his several inches of reach that he usually has over certain fighters, like that of a George Kambosos or that of a Lomachenko. He's not going to have that same advantage in that of certain fights at the 140-pound weight division. And I'd be very interested to see a Regis Prograis, Teofimo Lopez, Josh Taylor fight, especially Josh Taylor and Regis Prograis at their best, or even a Jose Ramirez. All three of those fights would be very particularly interesting. How far do I see Devin Haney going? He might be able to become a champion at 140 pounds if he puts on the right performance. Do I ever see him personally becoming a champion at 147? Not unless he gets extremely lucky. Just my personal opinion. I just don't think that he has the defense. I don't think that he has the head movement. I don't think that he has the power. I don't think he has any of those things. At least on his side, the same way that Gervonta Tank Davis does. And Shakur doesn't have great power either, but Shakur at least has astronomical boxing ability. Better head movement, in my opinion. Better defense, much quicker. Better, all around as a fighter, in my view. I think both of those fighters are more talented, probably a couple levels above that of Devin Haney. Now, the Shakur Stevenson fight would be interesting because Shakur doesn't have great power either, and maybe Devin Haney, he could potentially pull off an upset. Or I'm not going to say an upset because some of you might say Haney would be favored in that fight just because of the size. I'm not quite sure. But when it comes down to it, that would be very interesting because Shakur is not really known for his power either. But I also think that he's faster than Devin Haney. I think he's more accurate, and I think that he's a better all-around skilled fighter. As for Gervonta Tank Davis, if the best version of him shows up, he probably can beat both of them just because of his power and on top of that, his great boxing ability. But we'll see what happens. But anyways, good fight by both gentlemen. I personally thought that Lomachenko won the fight, but like I said, I'll personally have to rewatch it. Once again, I thought that Lomachenko did a very good job with his head movement and the use of certain angles, especially with certain feints in the fight. He did a great job in this fight doing that. Unfortunately, he was not dominant enough to pretty much steal this fight because he was going to have to steal this fight in order to win the fight, in my view, when it came down to it. And Devin Haney, he did a good body attack. I don't personally believe that it was enough to win the fight, but he did have some very good work in this fight. Do I think that he's going to last as the undisputed champion much longer? Not if he faces someone that is truly going to be able to handle his capabilities, and someone that probably has a chance like a Gervonta Tank Davis or someone overall like a Shakur Stevenson to where they don't really care who wins that fight. But anyways, that's pretty much about it for today. And trust me, I'm not trying to discredit Devin Haney in any way. These are just my personal opinions. It just is what it is. I did personally believe that Lomachenko won the fight. I thought that a lot of the limitations of Devin Haney was shown in this fight. And of course, some limitations of Lomachenko as well, like not being able to block the body very well, at least with that right hand. But you kind of expect that with his shorter arms. And on top of that, he's never been a natural 135-pounder anyway. And he is 35. And it will also be very interesting to see if certain channels like that of Dante's Boxing Nation, Boxing Ego, as I like to review their videos at times, once again to expose certain narratives or talk about certain subjects, it'd also be very interesting to see what they say about this victory, because I pretty much already know what they're going to say. But for those of you that remember watching a series of my videos, you know that when they talk about Canelo Alvarez or Manny Pacquiao, for example, two fighters that, of course, they try to tear down because they don't want them in the quote unquote greatest of all time conversation, or really even in the top 10 or top 20 debate. It'll be very interesting because, of course, a lot of the times they try to say that Canelo Alvarez, that his fights over Erislandy Lara and Gennady Golovkin should not be counted because they were quote unquote controversial. And they also said that Manny Pacquiao's fights over Juan Manuel Marquez should not be counted because they were quote unquote controversial. Well, once again, I've already stated this. If you're going to go by those standards, you also have to go with the same standard between that of Andre Ward and Sergey Kovalev, because that was a close fight with Sugar Ray Leonard and Marvin Hagler. And I wonder if they're also going to keep the same energy here. We probably already know the answer to that question, but once again, it's going to be very interesting. So, according to Dante, this one really shouldn't count from Devin Haney because a lot of people seen it as controversial. But of course, we don't expect him to keep those same standards. It is what it is. But anyways, that's pretty much about it for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Congratulations to both fighters for really laying it down on the line. I thought, of course, Lomachenko won the fight, but I'll personally have to rewatch it. We'll see what happens. But anyways, that's really about it for today. Thanks so much for watching. I'll talk to you all later.